life before working with Bee was really challenging. I had long-term health problems for about 8 years, since the birth of my two children, and it had been a real battle. I'd been diagnosed with Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune thyroid condition, and the consequence of which was that I had no energy. I was lethargic. I was deeply unhappy, and the only thing that I could describe it as, I was stuck in a health rut, and every day was a battle, really. And trying to just get the basic functions of looking after the children, going to work, being a friend, a partner, just being active in life. It just wasn't there for me. It was just really focusing every day on just getting from one moment to the next. And then I'd have a huge crash at the end of the day. And then I'd wake up the next day and start all over again. And so what that meant was I was living on a diet of stimuluses. Like, I was relying on coffee, I was relying on sugar, I was relying on quick, easy fixes just to cope with the stresses that I was having in my life. And I was just really unhappy, but I didn't really know how to deal with it or what to change. And so I was just going with it and just existing, as opposed to really enjoying life or being a participant in life. And it was not a good time for me. So working with Bee has given me so many improvements in my life. I genuinely can't believe how impactful it's been. The beginning, I was slightly apprehensive because I knew I needed to make a change in my life. I had reached a rut, health-wise, and even just in every possible way, in all areas of my life. It was affecting everything. So I knew I needed to change. But I also knew that I couldn't do what I'd done in my 20s, which was just reach out and do these sort of quick fix solutions. I knew that it had to be something that was going to really change my life. So because of that, because I knew I was making this commitment, I was a little bit apprehensive at the beginning, because I was worried that it was going to be these huge whole-scale changes that would be unsustainable. But what I found when working with Bee was, first of all, her knowledge was fantastic. Like, anything that I spoke about or any conditions that I felt, any symptoms that I was describing to her, she was empathetic, understood it, and was able to offer there and there in our interactions when we were having our calls and our Skype meetings and just talking to each other. You were able to offer me instant feedback and instant knowledge about what I was going through, which was really helpful. Because then it made me feel like I wasn't imagining, or that I wasn't exaggerating, or not understanding what was happening within myself. And so because of the confidence that I got on the calls and the weekly interactions, it meant that when I was sort of left alone for a week to get on with what you had suggested that I do that week, I was really able to commit to it, and I was able to do it. And I wanted to do those changes because I felt like I had been heard in the calls. And it wasn't just this thing about, oh, that I'm lazy, or that I'm not really looking after myself and you should be doing this. It was much more guided and informative to myself. And once I had the knowledge and had a bit more information about what was going on, it made making those changes much easier. And actually I wanted to do it because it was like a cause and effect. The minute I started to do the initial changes, the impact was so positive that the next change you suggested, I was sort of ready and willing to do it. So I felt like it needed to be handheld. I was somebody that had started so many things before and hadn't finished. So I needed to have that weekly guidance and that weekly sort of touch base where I could release and talk about how the week had been and get support for the coming week. And it really, really made a difference. Just those interactions, the questions that I would have during the week, you'd always come back to me, you'd always make suggestions. And it's really made such a difference. For a start, my energy levels have gone up. And that's had the biggest impact on my family, because with 2 young children, a husband that was getting in home really late, but the quality of my experiences with everybody was so poor beforehand, because I was just so fatigued that all I wanted was for everybody to get to bed, like rushing through every day. And the quality that we've got back now, all of us, just by me being that little bit calmer and being able to actually have energy and motivation to spend with everybody, has just been groundbreaking. And all of my relationships have improved because of that. And obviously another positive side effect was that I'd lost weight. I mean, I was living on sugar and caffeine, so it wasn't, there was no nutrition for my body. And it was just basically really in a bad way. And I noticed very quickly, like within the first 10 days, eating proper whole foods, the energy that I got and how much better I felt was quite radical. And now I really do think about what I eat. Like, I have no desire to sort of munch my way through sweets or Haribos or things that were basically my go-to in a stress situation. I'd reach out to the cupboard and eat whatever would give me an instant hit. And I actually have no desire to do that at all. And just simply because the changes that I've made and the changes that V advised me to make in my diet have been so positive. Like, I want to feel good and I want to feel energetic and I want to feel like I'm not on edge all the time and it's not 100 miles per hour. And all of these steps that we've taken together, because I feel like you understood me at the beginning, it's enabled me to grow really well. And I now feel like I have a bit of ownership over my health and my well-being. And that's really come from working with V. For me, I think one of the biggest benefits of working with V is that specialist one-to-one time that I got with her. And that's mostly because, as somebody that's always tried to fix problems myself, quite autonomous person, that if something's not right, I try to fix it. If I put on weight, I go on a crash diet. I've always been quite a solution-driven person, and find it very difficult to ask for help. And the reality was that I'd reached a point where my health was so poor, my happiness was just, I was just so unhappy, and everything was being impacted. And the thing that for me was making me worry was I felt that I was entering into my 40s, and I just thought, if I feel this way now, how am I going to feel in the next decade? And that was a real burning question for me. And when I started to be truthful about myself, about how I was looking after myself, and in my case, not looking after myself, I knew that I was going to have to make some big changes. And having someone like V, who is not only really knowledgeable, but so thoughtful and understanding, it really enabled me to make those changes. So the benefit for me was not only just the diet and the whole foods and the low sugar introduction, and really understanding and having knowledge of what I was putting into my body, but it was also the coaching and the support that I got for these little stresses that I was having in my family and in my household, and the triggers that I was having. And V offered so much insight and advice and guidance on how to handle some of these repeating patterns. That was such a change for me. Suggestions that really impacted on my mornings, on the school run, my relationship with my partner. And these were things that I didn't expect would change. I thought that I might lose a bit of weight and I might feel better, but I didn't feel that I was going to get a whole 360 life change. And actually, everything that I've put into place since being with V has had a really positive effect for all my family, and that has been the biggest benefit. I would say to anybody that's thinking about working with V that you should absolutely take this step forward in your life, because first of all, it's not easy to make changes, and sometimes we all think that we can do stuff on our own, but actually when you work alongside somebody like V, who has the knowledge, the experience, but most importantly, genuinely cares. Now, I've had a few, you know, there were definitely calls which were very emotional and very big moments for me personally, which I had to sort of break through. And V was there to support me through that. And a lot of it was just the work that you do yourself. There's things that you're working on in your own life, in your own habits. But V's guidance and interest and just the ability to see the situation for what it is, instead of my own voice telling me what I think was going on, it really gave me a fresh perspective, and it's changed how I've looked at it. Whereas before I was locked in my own battle of I've got to improve, I've got to change, and my own sort of narratives that I was telling myself, which were really making change impossible because I was putting so much pressure on myself. That week to week guidance, that week to week interaction with B and her knowledge and her laughter and her interest in my life meant that actually I could see things from a completely different perspective. And once I started to see myself for what really was, which is that I was not healthy and I was not, my well-being was really poor. And once I was able to see that actually I could change that myself through these sort of real one-to-one coaching and mentoring, that just changed everything. And it's changed how I approach not just how I eat, but my day-to-day life. And it's been 8 weeks. And honestly, if someone had said to me at the start, at the beginning, of would describe to me how I would feel at the end, I would not have believed them, because I was really, really struggling very much. And it just seemed too big a job to try and turn me physically around as well as emotionally around. But I've learned along the way that the two go hand in hand, and actually the little wins that I got emotionally through these care and support had massive impact on the decisions that I made in terms of my eating and my self-care and my stress levels, and just wanting to understand what I was doing to my body. And I think the fact that B works specifically with women is a real bonus, because it shows that she is a woman and she's been going through all of the changes that we're going through. But I just felt that I was able to share things with her, knowing that her interest and her support was specifically for me and for women, and understanding what we go through. And so I would really encourage you to take that step, because you're not doing it on your own. And actually, once you start with B, and once you approach it honestly and share with her what those challenges have been, she will home in on the things that will make a difference. And that was the absolute difference for me, that has enabled me to make the changes that I've had, is knowing that I've had that weekly support with someone that actually cares. And so I feel very lucky to have had the support for the last 8 weeks.